Hey, I'm Ryan from The Burnout Show, and in this video, I'm gonna show you how to do an oil change on a 2017 Ford Escape. As per usual, this is gonna be very similar to pretty much every other oil change, but we're gonna show you the specifics of where the filter is, the drain plug. And so this car with the 2.0 liter engine is gonna take 5.7 quarts of 530 oil. We went with the full synthetic to get the extra mileage between oil changes, but the manufacturer does recommend a synthetic blend, so if you did wanna go that route, you can. Once you've got your oil and filter, we're ready to get going. So the first step when going to do an oil change is gonna be lifting the car, whether that's putting it on car ramps like I did, or jacking it up, or even if you have access to a large hydraulic car lift, you can put it up like that. But today we're in the driveway, and this car doesn't have a great jacking point to lift up both sides of the car at the same time. What you can do is you can jack it up and then put it on jack stands. I went for the car ramp. Since we have that, it makes it a little bit easier. The next step is going to be opening the hood. So we're gonna go inside the car and pop the hood latch. The hood latch release is gonna be right here. There's just this little lever on the left side of the driver's seat, and then you just pull that and it'll pop open the hood. So now from here, there's gonna be a secondary latch release all the way on the left side of the car. You can kind of feel that. And then you can just take that and push it towards the right, towards the driver's side of the car, and lift the hood. So from here, Jay likes to open the oil filler cap so that the oil can flow out of the drain plug easier. So that's what we're gonna do now. This is your oil filler cap right here. So we're just gonna grab that, twist it off, just put it down right there. So now we're ready to go under the car and start working down there. The first thing that we're gonna need to do is take off the splash shield down at the bottom. That's gonna require a couple of things. First, it's gonna require an 8mm socket and also a T30 star socket. I also have a small impact right here. You can also just use a ratchet or something else, but I have this impact that's gonna make it a lot easier, so that's what I'm gonna use. Like I said, 8mm socket. Let's just hop under the car and I'll show you what it looks like. So along the front edge of the car, there's 3 8mm bolts that you're gonna have to take out to remove the whole splash shield. So that's what we're gonna do first. But then at the back, there's the 3 bolts with the T30 socket. So we're just gonna need to do that as well, and then we'll be able to remove the whole shield. There's also 1 bolt on either side on the left and right of the shield. You can see the other one right there. So you just need to take those out as well. And you do want to make sure that you save all these bolts because we're going to need them to put the splash shield back up when we're done. So make sure you grab those and put them in a safe place so you don't lose them. So this splash shield should pretty much just fall out at that point. Sometimes they are kind of tucked up into a spot, so you might have to pull it out. But generally speaking, it should just kind of fall out. So from here, we're gonna drain the oil out of the oil pan. And we're gonna need something to catch the oil, some sort of pan. Right here, I do have an oil catch pan. If you don't have one of these, you know, you can use like a tin Bunsen burner pan or just pretty much any bucket or anything like that to catch the oil, something that you can then dispose of it later properly. So we're gonna hop back under the car. We're gonna need a wrench or a ratchet to get the drain plug off, and then we'll drain the oil. So right here at the back of this big metal block, that's the oil pan. This is the drain plug. You can see it's right in front of this like little exhaust pipe where it bends. That's the drain plug right there, so we're gonna need to loosen that. It should be a 15mm, that's what it is on my car. Might actually be different on yours, but if you have a 2017 with a 2.0 liter, definitely should be a 15 unless somebody changed it. So we're gonna crack this open with the 15mm wrench, and we're gonna line up our oil pan so that it catches the oil as it drains out. All right, so I just cracked it loose, and now I can just kind of loosen it with my finger. As you loosen this, it's gonna start to drip oil a little bit. So you wanna push in to the oil pan as much as you can to reduce that dripping. And then, like I said before, you just wanna try to line up your pan so that it'll catch the oil when it first comes out. And now it's pretty much all the way out. So now I'm gonna have to just let go and then adjust the pan where it shoots. So let's see. Oh, or I'm gonna nail it. Wow. So I'm just gonna let this drain now, and then we'll get the filter off. So you can pretty much let that drain until it's like this. You can let it drain for a while longer if you want, but you don't really need to. So for time's sake, I'm gonna put my drain plug back in. Another thing to note with the drain plug is that there's always gonna be a gasket. You can see that black piece is the gasket. Sometimes it's like a copper washer or even some other stuff. You always wanna make sure that you have that gasket when you put it back on, because that's what prevents the oil from leaking out of the pan. So it's gonna be really important that you make sure you don't lose it. Sometimes it sticks up to the oil pan itself, so just make sure it's on there and, you know, pull it off, maybe clean it and put it back on. But mine's good, so I'm gonna throw that back in there and it should stop dripping. We're gonna tighten that down. I'm also just gonna get a rag and wipe that little drip clean so that it doesn't drip anywhere. So when you go to tighten this down, you don't really need to crank it on there. In fact, you definitely shouldn't, because if you strip those threads, then it's not gonna seal the pan. So you just kind of want to make it tight, nice and snug, but don't crank it down. So now that we're done with the drain plug, we're gonna move on to the filter. So we can grab our new filter. A lot of times they come with a plastic sheet over the bottom, and so you just want to remove that before you go to install this. Or sometimes they're completely wrapped in plastic, and so you just want to make sure you remove all the plastic from it so that it's just the filter before you go to put it on. And then another thing is that Jay and I like to take a Sharpie and write somewhere visible on the filter. In this case, the top will be the visible part. We like to write the current mileage of the car and today's date, so that the next person who's going to do an oil change, maybe it's not the same owner, maybe you sell the car or whatever, they'll know when the oil change was done, mileage-wise and time-wise. So you don't necessarily have to do that, but it's a nice, easy way to just keep track of when things were changed. So the oil filter is just right in front of the pan, right at the front of the car. You should be able to see it pretty easily. It's just right here. These, a lot of the time, are not super tight, so you can just twist it off with your hand. It'll take a little bit of leverage. If it's too tight, you can either get an oil filter wrench, which is kind of like a strap wrench, and that can help you get some leverage. Or if you don't have that, a large pair of channel locks, you can just squeeze that off. Or worst case, you can stab a screwdriver right into the side and twist it off. I'm gonna try to just grab this with a rag. All right, I was able to crack that loose with my hand. So before I loosen it anymore, because there's a lot of oil in here that's gonna come out, I'm gonna get my drain pan. I'm gonna try my best to line that up underneath, and then I'm gonna start twisting this off. And I'm just gonna let that drain for a bit, and then once it's done draining, I'll finish taking that off, and then we can put the new one back on. This is done, pretty much done dripping. There's still a little bit of drip going, but for the most part it's done. So I am just gonna twist this all the way off. Whew, make sure you don't drop it. And then there's still gonna be some more oil inside of it, so you can just tip that into your pan and let that continue to drain, and then we'll get the new one. So before you actually put the new one on, you wanna get a little bit of old oil on your finger and then rub it around the rubber gasket on the bottom. You don't need a ton, you just wanna get a little bit around, all around. What that's gonna do, it's gonna help create a much better seal when the rubber gasket touches the metal of the engine block, and that's gonna help prevent any oil leaks. And it's gonna also make it so that you don't have to crank it down super tight. I'm gonna go install this right now. Now I'm just gonna put this up here and screw it on. Like I was saying before, this doesn't need to be super tight, just needs to be snug. I'm gonna tighten that as much as I can with one hand. So from here, we're ready to pour in the brand new oil. Like I said earlier, it's 5.7 quarts of 530. The manufacturer recommends synthetic blend. I'm going with a full synthetic to get that extra mileage. We're just gonna need a funnel, and we're just gonna put that funnel into the oil filler neck that I showed you before, where we took out the oil filler cap. And from here, we can just pour in the new oil. So I got my new oil right here. And one tip for pouring oil out of these little bottles, so you actually wanna pour it this side down. If you pour it like this, you're not gonna get a smooth pour. It's gonna be pretty choppy. It'll splash around a bit. But if you pour it like this, you can get a nice smooth pour out of it, so it's not splashing all over the place. So once you pour in all 5.7 quarts of oil, you just wanna take the funnel out, screw the oil cap back on, and you're pretty much good to go. So if you found this video helpful, make sure you hit the like button and definitely subscribe. And if there's any other repairs or any other videos you want to see, make sure you leave those down in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you also check out our memberships. There's going to be a little join button right next to the subscribe button. If you click on that, you'll get all the info about the different perks and benefits that each level gets. There's a lot of really fun stuff in there. So make sure you do check those out and consider becoming a member. But that's going to do it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I hope this helped.